Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for joining Real-Time Market Neutrality webinar. Before we begin, please ensure that you have opened the WebEx participant and chat panels by using the associated icons located at the bottom of your screen. Please note all audio connections are muted at this time. You are welcome to submit written questions throughout the presentation, which will be addressed at the Q&A session of the webinar. To submit a written question, select all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel, then enter your question in the message box provided and send. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. With that, I'll turn the conference over to Heidi Carter. Heidi, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone for joining us today for this Real-Time Market Neutrality Settlement Initiative training. So again, I'm Heidi Holmberg-Carter of the Customer Readiness Group, and I've also got James Lynn here with me from Settlements Group. We also have a few more people in our room, and so I'm going to go ahead and go around the room right now and let people introduce themselves. Other subject matter experts.
Hi, Monica Monitor with Client Services.
Steve Castanelli, Customer Services.
Cynthia Hinman, Customer Readiness.
Rochelle Wiltsius, Customer Readiness.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Go ahead and I'll let James introduce himself now that I've introduced him.
James Lynn, Senior Advisor, Settlement.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to be taking you through some of the information here, and James will be adding a lot of the flavor for the details on this initiative. So this webinar is intended for market participants who participate in the real-time market to gain an understanding of the real-time market neutrality settlement calculations that are going to be modified coming up in the fall release, and they're intended to improve the accuracy of the imbalance energy offset by individual balancing authority areas. So at the end of this course, you're going to be able to identify what the modifications are going to be for both the charge codes 64770, the real-time imbalance energy offset, as well as charge code 64770, the real-time imbalance energy offset for the energy imbalance market for EIM. So the scope of change for this in this neutrality settlement initiative, it's modifying the calculation of the real-time imbalance energy offset to improve the accuracy of the offsets by the BAAs, as we mentioned on the last screen. So the scope includes the end of the ISO performing the real-time imbalance energy offset, the RTIEO transfer adjustments, and the elimination of this step does require a tariff change. So we actually submitted the tariff filing to FERC on July 30th of this year. Also, in order to determine the EIM transfer financial value between California BAAs and with California BAAs, the SMEC is going to be used, which is the system marginal energy cost. And between non-California BAAs, it will be the SMEC plus the GHG, which will always be a negative in the case that California is importing. And we'll talk about, give you some examples a little bit later. So for each EIM BAA, the EIM real-time imbalance energy offset shall calculate the EIM transfer total financial value as EIM transfer financial value at SMEC plus GHG financial value credit for both the FMM and the real-time dispatch. There's also going to be a business practice manual change, and that is going to be covering the standardization of EIM entity updates, the EIM transfer system resource, so the ETSRs, with 5-minute transfer values. So I know that James has been working on that, so we'll talk about that a little bit later, and he can take you through where we're at with that process. So first we're going to break down the RTIO, that real-time imbalance energy offset transfer adjustment. So in settlements, each balancing authority area, or BAA, will receive the following output data for FMM and RTD for settlement rule changes for RTIEO, which is covered in charge code 64770. That one's for the EIM folks. And so each will receive the information on the EIM transfer GHG credit, megawatt hours, GHG financial value credit, EIM transfer financial value at SMEC, and the total financial value of EIM transfer as EIM transfer financial value at SMEC plus the GHG financial value credit. So breaking that down, the current formula for determining real-time market neutrality is to take the instructed imbalance energy, uninstructed imbalance energy, unaccounted for energy, and greenhouse gas, and that results in the real-time market neutrality settlement. Then to allocate the real-time market neutrality, an offset is calculated for the LMP components, which include real-time marginal loss offset, real-time congestion offset, and the real-time imbalance energy offset. So that's that current formula for determining neutrality. But if we are looking at the modification of the RTIEO, you're still looking at all those, the instructed imbalance energy, uninstructed, unaccounted for, real-time loss, or real-time congestion, real-time marginal loss offset, and greenhouse gas GHG awards. What's changing is that the transfer financial value there's going to be a change in that, but also we're removing the transfer adjustment. The transfer financial value will be an embedded credit back for GHG costs for the non-California EIM transfer. We've got some examples of that coming up a little bit later. And again, the transfer adjustment, that is being removed, and that was all part of the stakeholder process to have that removed. And all of this results in the real-time imbalance energy offset, or the RTIEO. Anything you want to add about this slide or any details, James?
Well, the transfer financial value, we will calculate the initial financial value the same way we do today, which is the ETSRs, which are not settling at the LMP. We have now elected to settle them, so we will calculate the financial value of the system margin energy cost. But then we're also going to determine which of the ETSRs are flowing from EIM to EIM. We'll calculate a greenhouse gas credit, and then we'll add it to the financial value to get would be the true financial value of the ETSRs. That's what we're trying to indicate here.
Okay, thanks, James. So we have the total financial value transfer calculation in the RTIEO, and that's currently calculated as a product of the EIM transfer quantity and SMEC for both the FMM and the RTD. And so, again, this is for those inside of the California ISO BAA as well as for each BAA in the EIM footprint. Anything else that we need to add about this? That one? So then to correctly account for the financial value of the EIM transfers, there are a couple of steps that we need to take. The first one is to calculate the financial value energy on EIM transfers at SMEC. And then for step 2, the financial value credit for GHG on EIM transfers between non-California BAAs. So there's no GHG cost credit for any of the California BAAs. And for non-California BAAs, GH credit is in the net EIM transfer minus the GHG awards to resources in the BAA.
I do want to add something in here is during the implementation, a question came up regarding how are we going to handle operational adjustments of an ETSR. In other words, the difference between the RTD schedule and the tag value which the EIM entities have checked out. What we have determined or proposing to do is we will apply the greenhouse gas credit for the EIM to EIM transfers from FMM to RTD, base FMM to RTD after RTD any operational adjustments, we will also apply a greenhouse gas credit to the entire EIM area because we believe that the greenhouse gas obligation is no longer being applied at that point. When we go through the BPM change management process in the next couple of weeks, please review that and provide comments on it if you are supportive of this. But that is a slight change that is occurring. We do have tariff authority to support that.
Should we open that up for questions right now? All right. Moderator, if we could open this up for questions.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, as we enter our Q&A session, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. You'll hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, you can state your question. And it looks like we do not. Oh, wait, we just had one pop in. Caller, your line is unmuted. You may ask your question.
Energy. Just a couple quick questions. So you're saying that because I saw a couple of proposals, you're saying, they were trying to get the GHG as separate that account charge code. So you are saying that you are going to include the separate charge code, like independent charge code, like that's congestion offset account and the loss that's offset account. So you're saying this GHG definitely is going to be included with the financial transfer that's under the offset account, right?
Yes, Susie, with the initiative, we have made the determination that for this first phase, we are going to embed it within the calculation of the real-time imbalance energy offset and not do a separate charge code. We would consider doing a separate offset in the future when we look at dealing with multiple greenhouse gas regions. But at this time, it's going to be embedded within the real-time imbalance energy offset calculations.
So this change is going to be also going to be implemented at the same time as the 5-minute ETSR shaping, right? Everything going to be?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
you. It's going to be the fall release, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Michelle, do we have any other questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, as a reminder, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. It looks like we do not have any additional questions at this time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We'll go ahead and continue. So following up on the steps for correctly accounting for the financial value of EIM transfers, the RTIO is going to calculate the total EIM transfers GHG credit, megawatt hours, for each EIM BAA, again for the FMM and RTD. So here you see the calculation of the EIM transfer GHG credit megawatt quantity. Imports plus export less GHG obligation would be equivalent to the net EIM transfer less the GHG obligation. So the portion of the EIM transfers that do not correspond to a greenhouse gas compliance obligation under the regulations administered by the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. So that's the EIM transfers GHG credit megawatt. So let's look at a couple of examples to give you a better idea of how this works here. So assume we have BAA1 and assume that that is a non-California balancing authority area. And that's transferring 200 megawatts of energy to other BAAs with a GHG award of 50 megawatts. So we know that 50 megawatts of that transfer went to California load at SMEC. this 150 megawatts of energy transferred to the non-EIM BAA would be at the SMEC plus GHG, which is negative. So if we look at that, we'd have the 200 megawatts of SMEC, and then we'd have the 50 megawatts of GHG award, and that would result in a 150 megawatt hour charge to BAA1. Then if we look at example 2, if BAA1 is now importing 50 megawatts, if they were awarded 25 megawatts of greenhouse gas with a credit of 75 megawatt hours, in order to get the net transfer of 50 megawatt import, they would need to be importing 75 megawatts from the non-California BAA and exporting 25 megawatts to California. Likewise, for example 3, if BAA was to have no EIM transfer, just as in the second example, in the case of no EIM transfer, the resulting credit would be 25 megawatt credit. Anything you want to add on any of those, James? No? All right. Go ahead and open it up for questions. So, moderator?
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, pressing #2 on your telephone keypad will enter you into the question queue. You may also submit your questions in writing. To submit a written question, select all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel, then enter your question in the message box and send. That looks like we do have a question.
Okay.
Caller, your line is unmuted. You may go ahead.
Hey, James, Susie with FMM Energy. So you mentioned something like the OA adjustment. So that's what's going to be included with this big change? It will include many multiple components. Which adjustment are going to impact or going to be a change to the OA adjustment? Going to be moved to OA or from OA adjustment to the RTIEO offset account?
I'm not sure I follow your question completely, Susie. I'm going to try to answer what I think it is. So if I'm understanding your question, you're wanting to know what operational adjustments are going to be included in the greenhouse gas credit calculation?
Also,
is that correct?
Also, that I want to, that I think a feminist shipping, ETSR shipping, I want to touch up on that too. Are those also included in the OA adjustments, or are you going to move?
Okay, we'll address. I'll address the shaping later, but when it comes to operational adjustments, the only thing that is going to be included in this greenhouse gas credit is when you have an ETSR that is supposed to be flowing out of RTD. Let's say it goes from BA1 to to California, which is BA3 of 100 megawatts. But you tag 80. Okay, well, what you're telling us is, based upon the tag, that not the full amount did not flow. The problem is, I don't know if that was replaced by internal, if that was a net counterflow that came from California that caused you to tag that, and you did deliver the 100 megawatts. So what we've determined is that 100 megawatts was deemed delivered to go to California. So any operational adjustment is going to be considered a counterflow of that deemed delivered. So therefore, that operational adjustment is going to be the difference between the tag of that ETSR and the RTD schedule of that ETSR. And because we've already deemed that 100 megawatts delivered and applied a greenhouse gas credit for it in RTD, we are now going to apply another greenhouse gas credit for an operational adjustment for both balancing authority areas to account for the fact that other energy was dispatched to replace that 20 megawatts. So we're only going to limit this to any deviation, probably with a better word instead of operational adjustment, any deviation from the tag to your RTD schedule of ETSRs.
So currently, you know, with all the tag changes, I mean that operational adjustments from actual meter to RTD is going to be included in the operation adjustments with the LMP.
Well, any other operational adjustment of the interties are going to get applied, like they do today. The LMP is going to apply. If that intertie is leaving the EIM and we've deemed energy to have gone to California, you're already applying the greenhouse gas, the marginal cost of greenhouse gas to the settlement of that intertie schedule, so you don't have to apply it again. We're just trying to account for the ETSRs in my comment and with regard to the difference between tag of the ETSR and the RTD schedule of the ETSR.
So this part of ETSR adjustments is going to be included in the 64700 operational adjustments. And then with the...
No. That's what I'm trying to get to the ETSRs, unless you've elected to settle it, and if you are elected to settle it, yes, it's included in 64700. If you have not elected to settle it, it is part of the real-time imbalance energy offset.
So you're saying for the deviation part of it, for the GHG, so are there any components with the GHG prices going to be included? That's why I was like, we don't want the duplicates of imbalance calculation included in the...
You're not duplicating it because you don't settle most of your ETSRs. Only those that you have elected to settle are actually an LMP applied, and when that LMP applied, the marginal cost of greenhouse gas is included if we have any energy being from an EIM sinking to the ISO or to California. Most of your ETSRs are not settled. Most which are used, the static and dynamic, which are used by the market, are not settled at all. So when we calculate the financial value and you have a deviation between your RTD schedule and your tag, we're accounting for that deviation by applying a greenhouse gas credit too.
So is which price going to calculate from that deviation from the RTD to the actual tag? Was with the LMP prices or with the GHG prices?
The ETS, static ETSRs and dynamic ETSRs, you don't apply an LMP. You're going to apply a system marginal energy plus the greenhouse gas credit if it's applicable. We need to separate the discussion that we've gotten into on your other intertie resources. This discussion is limited to your EIM transfer system resources. If you have a base EIM transfer system resources that you've elected to settle, all of that energy, all that FMM instructed imbalance energy, RTD instructed imbalance energy, and operational adjustments, the LMP will apply, and they'll settle in the relevant charge code. For all other ETSRs, they are used to calculate the financial value. The proposal is to correctly apply the greenhouse gas to ensure that that energy is priced accordingly.
Okay, all right,
So all
thank
we're
you.
doing is financial.
That helps. Thank you,
If
Susie.
you want to talk more about it, call me later, Susie.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Susie.
And we actually do have a chat question.
Okay.
The question is, in example 3, there is no EIM transfer. Can you explain why there is a 25 MWH credit if there's no transfer?
Well, actually, it's not no transfer. It's a net transfer of 0 megawatts. In this case, and we didn't draw it accurately, is you have an ETSR that shows 25 megawatts going to California, as well as a 25 megawatt going from BA2 to BA1, or even a counterflow from California to BA1. So for BA1, the ETSR value has a net value of 0, even though we did deem that 25 megawatts did actually sink to California.
All right. There are currently no additional questions in the queue, in the verbal or the chat queue.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for cleaning that up. That was my error. All right, so I know we've already just touched on it with the conversation with Susie, but now there's going to be also a business practice manual update, the ETSR with 5-minute transfer value. So we're going to be using after-the-fact EIM deemed deliverable megawatts for ETSRs. So actually, we've got some notes up there, but James, if you want to just walk us through this, I think it would probably make it more clear.
So what we've done, we had several conversations both internally and externally. What is the best methodology to handle this issue? What we determined is that the EIM balancing authority areas should continue to submit the ETSR values as they do today. So there's no change in your system. If you are not shaping them today, we are going to provide you with guidance on how to shape them by how we are shaping our hourly checkout values. So what the real change is that the ISO is going to be checking out the ETSRs between the EIM and the ISO. Those checkout values are going to come from our ITS system and going to come to settlement as an hourly integrated value. We are going to take that hourly integrated value and use your RTD schedule to shape that hourly integrated value. How we'll do this is we will take that tag value, or we call it tag value, but it's intertie schedule value from our ITS system, bring it back up to the hour, and then across each 5 minutes of the hour, we will then redistribute that megawatt to be in alignment with your RTD schedules. If there is a situation where across the hour, the net value is extremely small, let's say less than 1 megawatt. We have put a mitigation measure in there to ensure that I correctly account for each interval flow and not just put it at 0. All of this is described in the real-time energy pre-calc. Will be in that BPM. We have draft technical documents out already posted under the release planning site of the ISO's website. The BPM change management process, I believe, starts next week, and those changes will be included in that process as well.
All right, let's go ahead and open it up for any questions that we might have at this time. Melissa? Michelle?
Sure, absolutely. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, pressing #2 on your telephone keypad will enter you into the question queue. You may also submit a written question. Just be sure to select all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel. Enter your question in the message box and send. And there are currently no questions in the queue, either the verbal or the chat queue at this time.
Okay. And just another note, James pretty much already covered this, but both entities will be able to see the ETSR after the fact tag. So anything you want to add about this, or did you already?
I didn't really cover this. So as part of the fall release, one of the questions or requests from EAM entities is to make sure that the ISO publishes out the values of the submitted tags so that you can download it from CMRI. So what the ISO has proposed to do, and we're doing it in market simulation now, is whoever is the responsible tagging party, we will take that tag value and associate that with, it's called a mirrored ETSR, a resource ID, and we will publish both that tag, submitted tag value, and the mirror ETSR value out on CMRI, so it's available for download. Settlement is still only going to use the tag value. We will apply the appropriate balancing authority areas, but the resource ID will be the tagging authority's resource ID. It is available to all participants, either in the ISO build determinant file or the EAM build determinant file.
Okay. All right, do we have any, well, actually we're going to go ahead and go through this real quick before we open up for last questions. So as James already said, there's a lot of places where you can find more information. The Settlements in Billing Business Practice Manual, charge code 64777, 64770, Settlements and Billing Configuration Guide. Also the release page, as he said, there's information on the stakeholder page. And today's presentation, along with the amended slides, will be posted up on our Learning Center. And I'll be taking some of the notes that we have here and adding that to the documentation that's going to be posted, as well as links to all of these different pieces of information. So anything else that we need to add before we open it up for last questions, James?
No.
Okay. All right. Michelle, if we could open it up for any last questions.
Absolutely. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, pressing #2 on your telephone keypad will enter you into the verbal question queue. And we do have a question in the queue. Caller, your line is unmuted. You may ask your question.
Hi, James. This is Jennifer at Idaho Power. I kind of missed the raising my hand. Can you go back to the ETSR shaping slide? Yeah. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So this is for those of us that don't have ETSRs with CAISO, so for just Idaho who doesn't have an ETSR, there's nothing that's going to change. We're going to continue to submit our dynamic ETSRs just as we do today. And you had mentioned something about providing guidance on how we shape. However, if we're shaping them currently, I mean, if we're basically putting what we get from ADS from those and submitting that to CAISO, is that essentially what the CAISO is going to be doing with those ETSRs? I'm just trying to understand what I need to do for my end, if there's anything that I need.
Remember, you don't have to do anything. So, yeah, so if you are providing it based on your ADS, then you're fine. I'm part of my shaping process I'm trying to highlight is I'm trying to get back to that, almost that point. And that's why I'm using the RTD schedule to allow me to get back to that point. The reason why I made that statement was just in case we did have anybody who was not already doing it in that methodology, that I wanted to point out that how we're doing it in our guide is our recommended path of doing it. If you're using ADS, that in essence is doing the same methodology.
Okay, great. And just one more question. I think on today's RUG call, I didn't listen in, but one of the people here had said that they thought that someone had said that the BPM was actually already posted, but they were looking for it, but it sounded like you were saying that that's going to start next week. So should we not expect to see any changes to the BPM or even a draft of it until next week?
You can see the draft on the draft technical documents under the release planning. When you're in the release planning, it says a section that says settlement technical docs. We've already posted the draft technicals. We're converting those into the BPMs, and you are correct. They did say that on the RUG call, and that was premature. They should have included on the slide that it would be included in the next BPM cycle, and we're starting that next cycle, I believe it's next week.
We'll get clarification for that, so when I post those, we'll make sure that that's on there.
I'm actually going to be on that call as well, so let me see if I can look it up and see what day it is.
So does that help, Jennifer?
That does. Thank you.
Moving to the next question in the queue.
Okay.
Caller, your line is unmuted. You may ask your question.
James Susie with Energy. So I don't remember which slide was talking about. You were talking about determinants because I don't have this copy of slides. Is this have you guys already published this somewhere?
No, these slides will be published this afternoon, and they're going to be on our Learning Center. So when you signed in today, I'll send you out an email saying when they're posted and where to go to find these.
Okay, thank you. And then my question just,
You're welcome.
Determinants, James, you were talking about, so that there's going to be, that include all the after-effect tax information. You're saying they are all going to be included in the RTIEO CC64770 account, right? So that's what you meant. So you all the entities can see. Is that what you were saying?
Today, Susie, what we do for calculating the financial value is we do the 15-minute schedule to your base schedule, and then we do tag directly to the 15-minute schedule. In the future, when we promote the changes, I'm going to break that last section where instead of going tag all the way to the 15-minute schedule, I'm going to do RTD to the 15-minute schedule and then tag to the RTD schedule. The FMM and the RTD, we will apply the greenhouse gas credit if you have greenhouse gas being delivered in your balancing authority area, or in the EAM balancing authority area, sorry. For any difference between tag and your RTD schedule, we apply it to the entire EIM area.
So all the information we're going to receive under the charge of the RTIEO, right? I mean, that's was just thought that, to make sure all the entities,
yep,
our settlements receive all the information. And then that's,
you will receive all the information.
So currently, not currently, you're going to do, CAISO going to do all the 5 minutes shipping. So you just mentioned something like, for the 15 minutes, you're not going to do anything for the 15 minutes, right? I think 15 minutes ETSR transfer is going to be based on the 5 minutes shipping, right? Am I understanding this correctly, or maybe I just misunderstood or something?
Well, that was a discussion that happened recently. We are going to shape the 15-minute as well. So the any hourly value tags we get, which would be the static and the dynamic, we are going to shape it based on the RTD schedule. For the static ETSRs, those should be each 5-minute interval of that 15-minute interval should have the same value. So therefore, we are shaping it to reflect the FMM because the RTD reflects the FMM schedule.
Does that help, Susie?
Yeah. Can I ask one more question, or I can call James?
Go ahead.
Oh, that's just one more question, one last question. For
we'll see, Susie, and then
sorry. Because the confusion is for that RTIEO 64770 financial transfer, the big component included in this offset account. They're using for the ETSR transfers, particularly use the SMAC prices though. But my confusion, just like I asked the last question, for the operational adjustment for for the 64700 account, because they're using different prices. So you mentioned a little bit saying that you are going to, on the 5 minutes ETSR transfers or 15-minute transfers, they are going to be partially going to move to the OA adjustments. So, so my concern just, because they're pricing different, they are different. One use SMAC, one use the LMAP. So, I mean, for all this component of adjustment, with the new change, is there going to be a new determinant for OA as part of adjustments, or is just everything going to be included in one determinant for OA?
This is what I wanted to. This is what I was trying to distinguish. The operational adjustments that you're referring to are for your intertie schedules. Those are resources which are non-participating resources that are in the market. We are explicitly settling those at the RTD LMP for that operational adjustment. And for ETSRs are not settled in our market unless they are requested. If they are settled in our market, those ETSRs are treated like any other intertie schedule. We'll apply the LMP. We will calculate a deviation, or you can call it an operational adjustment. We can call it a deviation. I believe I'm calling it in my configuration guide deviation. But that is the same type of value. It's a difference between what you were dispatched in RTD and then what you deemed delivered to have flowed across that intertie for that resource. If it's an ETSR that is not elected to settle, we are not applying an LMP anywhere.
Yeah, but
we will apply the system.
It should be
system marginal energy price. We will apply the system marginal energy price to calculate the financial value, and then we will apply the marginal cost of greenhouse gas to calculating the greenhouse gas adjustments that's needed.
So what we can do, Susie, is I just took notes on what James said, and I will put this into an additional slide for the presentation. And, hopefully that will kind of line them up, and then if you have any additional questions about that, then you can follow up. How does that sound?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Susie.
Appreciate it, Susie. All right, so we're getting close to the end. Do we have any other calls or questions right at this moment?
There are currently no questions in the verbal or chat queue.
Okay, well, just as a reminder, this was effective from settlement standpoint as of August 1st, and so then do you remind everybody the first time that they'll see this on their settlement statement?
So We have not, although the proposed effective date is August 1st, we're waiting for, I believe we've gotten the response from FERC, and I'm not sure if they've approved it or not. I don't have legal guidance on that yet. But if FERC does approve it, when we promote this in the fall release, which is end of November, we will retroactively settle this back to 8/1. So for those trade dates between 8/1 and the promotion date, let's say I think it's November 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be resettled on the next available statement. So for 8/1, it's probably going to be the 9 months. For something in early November, it will be the T12 or T55. So it all depends upon where we are in the billing cycle. But regardless, we will automatically go back to 8/1 to resettle these.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, James. So with that, we've concluded our presentation. We will open up for one last opportunity for questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Michelle, do we have any other last questions?
I do not see any additional questions in the queue. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, pressing #2 on your telephone keypad will enter you into the question queue.
And I did see that we got a note saying from one of the participants giving James a big thank you, and so I agree. I appreciate James being here to offer. He's definitely the expert, so we appreciate him being here to fill in the gaps and help guide us through this. So any other questions, or?
It looks like someone is trying to ask a verbal question. Once again, pressing #2 on your telephone keypad. I think I see you now. Okay. Caller, your line is unmuted. You may ask your question.
Hi, it's Jennifer. Sorry, I was pressing #2 and I don't know what was happening. So just wanted to follow up, and maybe this might be part of the whole operational adjustment follow-up, James, that you're going to add the slide. But I wanted to just clarify so I can understand, because I'm not as familiar with that. Are you saying that if we have, we get deemed delivered at 100 megawatts, the tag actually only comes in at 80, there's going to be an operational adjustment potentially of that difference of 20, and if I'm not saying this correctly, let me know. And then how does that then relate to the whole lesser of analysis that we have to do with CARB, where as entities we're reporting, the lesser of the GHG award and our meter value? So we actually have to report some of that to CARB. Am I completely thinking something different, or, it sounds like to me that there's going to be an adjustment now for that, or am I?
No, so what we're doing is, and this is kind of somewhat related to that, is your greenhouse gas obligation coming from the ISO market is to a generator, and you're going to do the lesser of the output of your generator and what you were considered deemed delivered to California. So, well, when it comes to the ETSR values, that energy did not necessarily come from that generator. We've deemed it to come from that generator, but it could have come some other way. It could have come from your ACE. It could have come from something wheeling through. So when you have the ETSR values different between your RTD schedule and your tag, we're determining that you've already accounted for that greenhouse gas with CARB by addressing it with your greater or lesser of your meter versus the deemed delivered obligation. Now we have to account for the fact that my ETSR tag is different. It could have been more, it could have been less. So in the example I gave you, it was less. So if I try and price that ETSR value at two different prices, one for one balancing authority area or the other, then I'm driving a different neutrality issue. So we determined that the greenhouse gas obligation to California stops at RTD. And so therefore, when anything after RTD, we apply that greenhouse gas adjustment because you've already accounted for that greenhouse gas obligation. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah. So in the case that you gave, it would actually be a credit back, potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be a credit back to you, and let's say it was going to California. It's also a credit in California.
Right. Because that obligation wasn't there as high. Okay, great. That answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much.
And we do have one more question in the question queue. Caller, your line is unmuted. You may ask your question.
Hey, James, Susie. One last quick question. So for the last slide, you mentioned something like the mirror resources. It went so fast, I didn't catch it. Is there any changes for the mirror resources?
No, that's it's the ETSR. So let's say you and Pacific Corp East, you have an ETSR going across there. You are considered the person that the balancing authority area that has to tag it. We have the resource ID will say Nevada, the intertie location, then PAC East, and then whether it's a static or dynamic. Well, in our system, there's another resource ID we call mirror ETSR resource ID. That mirror ETSR resource ID will say PAC East, intertie location, Nevada, static versus dynamic. That resource ID will not have a tag submitted anywhere. So what we're going to do is take your tagging information and then put it on that other resource ID and publish them both out. That way, PAC East can now pull that information into its system without having to try and specially map your resource ID, because that resource ID is the one associated with PAC East entity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Same thing would happen to you if it was the other way around.
Okay, thank you very much, Susie, and thanks for everyone who participated and asked questions. We're going to go ahead and conclude this, but again, these slides will be posted later on our Learning Center, along with links to the information James was talking about. And we'll also make sure that we have the date for the BPM process so that you can follow along with that. Thank you very much again, James, and for Steve for still being here. And we hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.